I'm like so thrown off right now. All right, we'll just start. All right, welcome back. What's today? February 1st. We have Sierra Smith from Sun Peak Official, and I'm kind of just thrown off right now. Landlord issues, but we'll talk about that maybe in topic number two. But welcome back, Sierra.
Hey, thanks for having me back, and uh,
Oh,
thanks for thanks for being flexible with the schedule this week.
oh yeah. I forgot we canceled yesterday, and apparently you're in your vehicle right now. And what happened yesterday though? You're on some mountaintop trying to get Wi-Fi or
My
something.
yeah, my Wi-Fi is out, and so my cell phone service out here in the country, in more rural areas, is not that great unless I go out on top of a hill. So, just making do.
And this is on top of Sierra being 6'4", so she had to get extra high to get Wi-Fi
I am
service.
I am the cell phone tower. Yeah.
All right, so let's see. I think I did give you time to prepare for this topic. Specifically, I mean, it was about if you were starting over today, right? Where would or how would you start your financial, I guess, journey for financial freedom? I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
how would we start over if we were starting
yeah,
today?
yeah. I'm gonna wing it a little bit because I'm kind of flustered. I had a lot of stuff going on this morning, but so you start.
Okay. So I definitely would do a lot of what I preach now, but there's some hindsight to this, like the things that you learn through the journey that you didn't know when you got started. So hopefully this sheds like or shares some wisdom with people who haven't started their journey yet because you just don't know what you don't know, right? So I would I would definitely get into side hustles earlier on, and I would really double down on a couple of them rather than trying to do a whole bunch of different ones. And then I would use that money to either first pay off high interest debt if I had that, which would be like credit card debt, or like maybe even a car payment because there's a lot of financial freedom that comes when you have a paid off car. And so I would kind of tackle that stuff with that extra side money. And then I would start in on real estate and I would definitely go the route of house hacking first rather than just buying a primary residence for ourselves.
I like those. Yeah, I think, like you said, that's a lot of things you've learned going through this journey, and that's a lot of the topics that we do talk about. And I want to kind of start maybe with I don't maybe talk about it often enough, and I think it's one of the maybe I guess mistakes that I made. And you know, for me, I was super comfortable and complacent, and now that I look back on it, I probably should have been more focused on trying to get maybe promoted or like you talk about, right, increase your income, and not just from side hustles, just from your W-2, whatever you can do better from that standpoint. But for me, I think I was just super comfortable, and yeah, I used it as a crutch or an excuse, but I always made it as if like, getting promoted would be more headaches for me. Like, I'd have to kind of balance things out with my son's mom is trying to figure out scheduling. I wouldn't be at a station that would be more convenient. So things like that. So if I look back on that, I think that's definitely where I would focus on is trying to figure out how you can increase your income. And, like you said, side hustles is a great way, but also what you can do from your W-2.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, I would say changing jobs, at least in the path that we've gone, changing jobs more frequently and sooner would have been something that I wish that we had done, and I would do that now. And we definitely believed, that whole mindset around like work your way up at a corporate company. And I even tweeted about this recently that your loyalty at a company really doesn't pay off. Like the more you switch jobs, the faster you get a raise, and that has been so true. For Nathan, he's gotten almost a 20% raise every time he's changed jobs, which is more than what he was getting, every year for, fighting against inflation or just a merit raise. So that has been really beneficial to do, and I wish we had done more of that.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the drawback of the fire system, the firehouse system a little bit is you can move, I guess, in the fire departments, But a lot of times, a lot of the benefits is the pension that you may have in place at another department. So a lot of that, or your time, that you have in a department. So a lot of that doesn't carry over. So that's part of it where I'm trying to help people get started earlier. So if they do want to relocate, or they're not worried about this pension that they may be working on or building, that they can move, find a different job, join a different department. And like you say, maybe they're going to move to some place where cost of living is better, and they're not going to worry about maybe if they have 5 years in a certain department. And so that's kind of the way I look at it now, is just putting yourself in better position to not be locked into one job like you're talking about also.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you move positions between the fire departments, does does that start your like the rolling years over that are like
You
the
mean move positions that get promoted or move to a different department?
move to a different department?
Yeah, so most likely you're starting over. I mean, very rarely you'll find a departments that things will transfer over. I mean, I don't hear about it too often. But yeah, pretty much, like if you have, but sometimes you might be vested too, right? There's points where if you do 10 years in a certain department, you'll be vested to a certain point. So you might collect something. And that, like I said, that's a lot of the trade-off a lot of times, right? So, for me, my son's mom is from North Carolina. She always wanted to move back. And I was still early in my career, so I could have either moved, and I didn't have a lot of time vested. So that's one way I could have looked at it. But the other side of it was like, I want to get to this certain point, so I didn't waste, these whatever 4 or 5 years maybe. So that's kind of that handcuff that you face a lot of times. And I always talk about it where maybe if I was in a better position where I was, investing in real estate, generating other sources of income, where making that decision wouldn't have been as difficult.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up I have that I would I wish that if I okay, let me gather my thoughts here. If I were starting over, I would invest sooner in like things like the 401k match and just opening up a brokerage account just for extra cash, or a high yield savings account for extra cash that was sitting like our emergency fund or something. So that's two things that I for sure would do. And along the lines of the 401k match, we also had the opportunity to buy stock at a discount at the company that my spouse worked for. And so that we didn't do that either. And we were just of the mindset that we were still paying off debt and that we were essentially like didn't have the money to invest at the time. And I wish that we had done even just a little bit of that, even if it was $5 in a brokerage account or $100 towards the 401k match. And I don't think I realized how you could just pull your money out of the 401k. You'd have to pay the taxes on it too, but that money we would still be ours and we could have it liquid like fairly quickly if we needed to. But it just felt like we didn't have that much wiggle room in our budget at the time. But I would go back and do that differently for sure.
I like that. I think the only thing different I would say is, it's there's a maintenance request popping on my screen. We can talk.
Oh
But
no.
anyway, you talking about the 401. I mean, yeah, I think that's a great place to start, but I think that's also you got to look at it where that's not really investing in a sense, right? I think a lot of people, and I fell for that too, where you put money in these accounts and then you kind of just sit back and like, okay, that's my retirement right there. I don't have to do anything else. So I think that's where I would kind of push back on that a little bit, is do that, especially the match, but that's kind of just the base level, right? Like you
Right.
also want to, like you're saying, focus on building something else, like whether it's multiple side hustles and figure out what works for you, or a business. But the retirement accounts is kind of just so very close to almost like a savings account, right? Just kind of that
Hmm.
fallback option. And but I do like that. And like you said, I think a lot of people, even that, they don't even do that much, right? A lot of times.
Yeah, I think we definitely underestimated the value of that match that we had available to us. There was money being put in there, just from the company, or from both of our jobs initially, but we never did take advantage of any any match. And again, with the stock, because he worked at Garmin, so we had the opportunity to buy Garmin stock at quite a discount. And as a tech company, they've done, fairly well the last decade. So that's definitely something that I wish we would have taken advantage of.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have anything? My next one would be focused more, I think, on like mindset. I think a lot of things it just comes circles back around to kind of that mindset and how you're looking at things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would kind of pair with that what I had next, which was get around more people who were either wealthy or had that kind of mindset of being driven and wanting to start businesses were a good thing rather than kind of the oddity. So I wish I had put myself in a better circle.
Yeah, I think, and I just listened to an interview with like Alex Hormozy, and it really touched me where kind of touched a nerve. He talks about this story about I believe it was like soldiers in Vietnam. A lot of them were using heroin, and they thought there was going to be this big issue when they came back to return to the states, and there's going to be this huge kind of drug overdose or issue going on in the states. And a lot of these people that were doing heroin, when they came back, they just stopped. And when you look at like recovery centers, that results is completely opposite. People go to drug rehabs and they come back out and they jump right back on heroin. And I think a lot of it
Mhm.
he's trying to say is your surrounding, right? Where yeah, these people were doing heroin when they were surrounded by other people doing it during the war. But once you take them out of this environment, right, it wasn't an issue for them anymore. And I think that's super important is kind of what your surrounding is. And he talks about it a lot. It's just, sometimes you got to make yourself uncomfortable, if it
Yeah.
means moving, 30 minutes away from the clubs or the bars or what's convenient for you or what's holding you back, right? And that 30 minutes of driving might be like, you know what, I'm not going to meet you folks. I'm not going to do this, right? Because I'm working on something else. And I think part of that is, getting uncomfortable, but just what your surrounding is at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can even boil down to just your partner, right? Like who you're doing life with. And that's one of the big components of codependency, right? Is that you're struggling with something, but your partner kind of likes you that way. Like if you're an alcoholic, your partner might be enabling you and then you have this like um inability to escape that habit. And so it really does matter who you're surrounding yourself with. And that's a big reason why I enjoy doing the think tanks or kind of those community style groups where you can get together and you can get in a group of people who really do want to support your endeavors. And I think that accountability and just the support that you get from like-minded people is really crucial to your success. And so I think that's an important factor that people shouldn't underestimate.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I look at it where it's kind of like I'm trying to help a lot of other people get started. So I think that's great because it puts me around people where, it's almost like testing my knowledge, I guess, or testing my skills because they're asking me questions and I, want to answer their questions or, provide my knowledge. But at the same time, I also want to surround myself with people that are, 5, 10 years ahead of me because that's where I want to end up. So it's kind of like that balance where you want to be around people where you can bring up because you're trying to also, you know, see if your skills or your knowledge is up to par, but then you also want to put yourself around people that are ahead of you so that that's kind of where you want to end up, right?
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so one more question I have for you would be if you were just starting over on your real estate journey specifically, how would you start that?
I think the best way to get started is to surround yourself with people that are doing it. And I think so many people I encounter is just this fear that, you know,
Yeah.
I don't have a property or I don't have the money yet. And they don't even want to reach out or they don't want to be a part of, like you're saying, think tanks or whatnot. And I told them, no, that's the best time. Like,
Yeah.
you just because everyone has been there and they're gonna tell you like, oh, a lot of your fears, don't even worry about it, right? Like it's
Hmm.
you're kind of putting all these roadblocks in place for you that that don't need to be there. And I think that's the one thing is just being around people that are ahead of you, that are doing it. And whether you have zero properties, whether you have 100 properties, I think there's so much benefit to just be in these groups and talking to different people. And yeah, I love it. And then the other thing too, people are so surprised and they always comment and say like they are so surprised how like willing and helpful everyone is, like
Yeah.
providing resources or providing contact information. And everyone they've reached out to is just they're just amazing. Oh man, this is not like other groups they've been around. It's like people are kind of maybe holding information, or they don't want to provide contact information to maybe their business contacts or whatnot. But when it seems like real estate, you reach out to people and everyone is, oh yeah, let me introduce you to so and so, or let me point you in this direction. But yeah, that's been very eye opening for me.
Yeah, I think anyone, when you have a real level of success and you're not struggling, it becomes easier to share, right? Like you become less competitive and you become more generous just naturally. And I think this community has been great about just being an open book and being supportive. And I wanted to agree with you too on the part about surrounding yourself before you even get started, because that fear and anxiety comes when you feel like you're not quite equipped to handle what might come, and you have all of these things in your imagination about that could go wrong. And the more familiar you get with how other people are handling it or what could come up, then the more equipped you'll feel. And then that fear and anxiety starts to come down, and then you'll feel really confident going into it, which very few people get to start their journey feeling really confident. But if you surround yourself with the right people, then it's absolutely easy to step into.
Yeah, well, this was great as always. I'm glad we were able to do it this week. We had to push it back a day because your Wi-Fi in the country. But it's always fun, and you are doing a lot of cool things out there. So she's been on a few more podcast episodes, so stay tuned for those, and we'll look out for that. But we'll just keep doing this also weekly.
Yeah, well, let's do another episode and I'll see you next week too.
All right, thanks.